So I wanted to give a little update on the truck here. I came in tonight. I was actually going to paint the engine stands for the motor mounts, and turns out I don't have any roll-off disc here to clean up some gouges that are in there. So I went ahead and started kind of bolting some stuff on here. Only been here for about an hour. Got quite a bit done. I got the water pump on. The crank pulley is on. Alternator bracket, power steering pump. And these tensioners here, I've just got them loosely bolted on. I just didn't get to that one. And these here, I want to clean up these bolt heads. Clean up the bolts. Those are the ones that came with the motor, so they're a little dirty. The alternator, I've got one. I just don't have the bolts. So I'm going to run to GM tomorrow morning and pick those up. So, interesting on this alternator bracket here. This thing looked terrible. It kind of had that same look as this kind of this old crusty cast aluminum. So I took it over to a buddy's house and we sandblasted it. And then he had this neat little trick where he gets, I think it's Duplicolor, well, actually I've got a can of it right here. Let's just take a see what it is. It is Duplicolor engine enamel, and it's cast aluminum. I don't know if that's going to pick up. Yep, cast coat aluminum. And what he did, and he showed me on this thing, is he just literally just kind of lightly dusted it. So there's no paint on here. This is really the cast. You can see my fingers are smudging a little bit. But what he said it does is it kind of seals up the pores of the cast aluminum so it doesn't turn all cruddy looking like that back there. Since this thing is so loud and proud right in front, I thought it was kind of neat. So it's about the same color as the heads. And the other castings on here as well. So nice little touch there. But like I say, I'm going to get that alternator in the morning. Power steering pump. This power steering pump is actually from like an 03, I think what I ordered it from was just a 3/4 ton without Hydro Boost. The motor that came with this had Hydro Boost, and it had an extra port right here, which I don't need since I'm running vacuum brakes. So I got that in. This is kind of trick. This is the power steering pulley. And what I did here is I actually got this idea from another YouTuber, a Gearhead for Life. For the life of me, drawing a blank on his name. I think this is from like a 2010 or something. Tahoe, or I don't know. I don't remember exactly. Here's the part number here. I'll put a link in the description below, but it's pretty slick. So it actually has the cutouts in it, kind of like a normal shiv would be in my world. But for a normal pulley instead of the solid pulley, so that when you put it on here, see if I can do this. Maybe there we go. You can still access the bolts, which is a real novel idea. I don't know why GM hid those bolts behind a pulley, but makes it certainly easier to service, take it on and off. So I'm going to put that on. I feel like I'm just rambling here. I'm just trying to gather my thoughts on what all I've done. So the pile of parts is much smaller. So basically all I have is injectors, knock sensor harness, some gaskets in here. I think I got the barbell. Oh, I ended up buying these ARP 12-point exhaust manifold bolts just because the stock ones break, and these are like $12. So got those. That's about all in there, I think. So I'm actually going to call it quits for the evening. I'm gonna run home, so I'll pick this up probably tomorrow and see where we can get done here. So I'm making progress fast here, so hopefully be able to get this thing off the stand and back onto the pallet here pretty quick so I can put the flex plate on, send that transmission on there, and then start disassembling the truck, get this thing in there. So we are oh so close now. So I'm getting to the point now where I've got to order those remaining items, the radiator, the fuel tank, and some other little, expensive items. But I'm kind of been putting them off, waiting for them to go on sale. But hint, hint, Travis at Pro Performance, sure like a sale. But anyway, that's it for tonight, and we'll pick up on it tomorrow. All right, well, it's been a couple days, so I thought I'd get back down here. I was able to get the bolts from a local GM dealership. Ended up being like $3.75 a piece or something like that. So I got those. I got all these bolts cleaned up and everything torqued down. Everything's good to go on the front. I'm going to put this pulley on here in a second. I'll show how that tool works. Also, the headers came in. Now these are the Speed Engineering headers. So these things are like 150 bucks. They're obviously from China, but everybody swears by them. So I figured for 150 bucks, I'm going to give them a shot. Honestly, they're not bad looking. They are stainless. I did check that with a magnet. They are 304 stainless like they claim they are. The flanges, I don't know. I'm thinking that they are like a grade of stainless maybe. I don't know. The magnet still attracts to them. I don't know if they're just zinc-plated mild steel or what, but not bad. It comes with a V-band and a short section with an O2 sensor. So they build these things, and they say on their website that they are built for tight frames. Well, they aren't kidding, because I don't know if you can see that. Picking up, oh yeah. That collector is damn near touching right there. And the V-band, there we go, if I can talk today, is almost touching the nub for the starter here. So I don't have any gaskets in here, so they're sitting flush with the head, so that's going to add some clearance in both those locations. But as it sits right now, you can't get this V-band off with the header bolted down to the head, which kind of stinks. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the gasket in there and see how that works out. The driver's side is pretty good too. Again, doesn't have any gaskets on it. Right now, if I can get that camera up there far enough, the number one runner down here is actually touching the block. Again, there's no gaskets in here, so that will clearance up once I put a gasket in. If not, I might get my clearancing tool out, aka the hammer, and make a little clearance there. Because I don't know if anybody's seen that, but Motor Trend on Demand or Hot Rod or whatever the heck Freiburger's doing these days, they did a test on that where they beat up some headers, and it made no difference in power levels, putting dents and dings in them. So that's kind of what the deal is with those. The engine stands are painted. I get those done, get the hardware there. I started cleaning on the coils. You can kind of see which one's which here. So these are just some old beat up truck coils. I'm gonna try them. I guess kind of got tired of buying all new parts, so I'm gonna see how these work out. Get those cleaned up, and then also my dad and I got to Wild Hair and ended up going to Harbor Freight and buying one of these tool carts. And this thing, I had a coupon. It was like $189. Figure what the heck, we'll give it a shot. It's actually not a bad little tool cart here. It's got decent slides on the drawers here. Nice ball bearing slides, and I think Harbor Freight's finally starting to make some decent stuff. I mean, it's no Snap-on or even a Craftsman back in their heyday, but for 189 bucks, it's not too bad. I mean, it's got a decent weight capacity. It's got plenty of storage for on the bottom, the top. The only thing I don't like about it is the top. I wish it had I guess it depends on what you use it for. It doesnn't have any sort of a non-stick pad on here, and I may get some of this material here and glue it on the top just so and have a nice work surface. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at today. So I am just going to start plugging and chugging and getting the rest of all these odds and ends done so that I can get this off the stand hopefully today and get it back on. I've got a pallet that I made an engine stand on. I'm going to see if I can't sit it back on there and start doing some of the rear end stuff, getting the trans ready. Oh, I do need to, since these headers, like all shorty headers, and the reason, I guess I should explain why I did shorties. The truck, when the motor came out of the truck, it had long tubes on it. And the problem I ran into here is, if you can see that, but the Ridetech, let's see if I can adjust that. Wrong way. There we are. The Ridetech lower shaft on the lower control arm there sticks out like, an inch and a half, almost 2 inches longer than stock. And that's right where long tubes want to go. So there was just no room for them. I couldn't even make them fit. So decided to try out the shorties here, and whatever. I'm not a 1,000 horsepower drag car here, so they look the part. They do okay. I originally was going to buy some of the those Hooker cast iron manifolds, but they're like $400 for the ceramic coated ones, and these are 148 or 49, something like that. Figured I'll give them a shot. If they don't work out, and I'm not out a lot of money. So, but anyway, the way these shorties do, and all shorties do, and even some of the cast manifolds, is they put the exhaust right where the ears are on the 480 here. So these 480s, adjust the camera here, have these big ears right here and here. So I'm going to have to trim those off, just zip those right off. They actually don't, nothing bolts to this hole here. The cover, the bottom of the converter cover actually bolts in down here. And there's a bolt here and a bolt here, and it actually bolts to the block. So this little thing does nothing. It might open up the starter cavity a little bit, but I don't know. I'm going to see once I get it over there and see how close we are to hitting. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now and get to work. Okay, let's give this a shot here. So I bought this tool here. It's an install tool. Actually, I bought a kit that has the puller too, because this thing has that deal with that groove that you clamp onto this and you can pull the pulley off the shaft here. So I bought the kit. I believe it's an OTC. I modified this one. It has the correct 3/8 threads here that thread into the input shaft on the pump. And also had like a metric thread up here that I ended up cutting off because it was just too long. I was bottoming out before I got to the 3/8 thread. So I went ahead and cleaned the bore here, cleaned off the shaft here. I put a little bit of grease on there. So I guess we'll kind of see how this goes. So the way this goes on is it's kind of a concave one direction and sprout the other, so it actually goes with the concave portion facing the pump, so that it'll line up with the crank and everything else here. So let's give it a shot. So the way this works, you just kind of thread this in here, so it bottoms out, and then you run that down. Make sure it's centered and everything. Kind of wobbly donkey on there. So okay. Then just get the wrenches and go to town here. Let's see how this works. I'm going to put it on the right direction. It is going slowly but surely. One thing I am going to do here is I did not put any grease on these threads, so I'm going to back this up just a smidge, put some grease on this thread so it doesn't have to work so hard. I usually do that, and for some reason this time I didn't, so let me go ahead and put some grease on there real quick. This makes things a little easier for the threads there. So what I'm actually going to do is add a little bit back here and run that tool into the grease so we get some good grease in there. There we go. Perfect. All right, work smarter, not harder, right? So here we go. Yep, that was the right direction. Oh yeah, much easier. So the trick is here is you got to line up the pulley with the crank pulley in this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it onto a point, and then I'm going to get a string and wrap it on, because we've got known points up here, which is probably out of frame on the alternator, and then on the tensioner over here, and on the crank. So I'm going to run a string around all four of these, and I'll set this exactly where it needs to be. Just kind of eyeballing it now. We're actually in the ballpark, so I'm going to go ahead and get some string and check that out real quick. But that's kind of basically how that tool works. So pretty simple. Just kind of basically you got a bolt threaded into the pump, and you're just using the bolt as a fixed point, pushing the idler onto the shaft, or the sheave, or the pulley, I guess everybody calls them. Same thing I used on down here. It's just a bigger version of this down here, and it worked perfect. Just pulls it on there. That way you don't abuse the threads on the shaft, on the crank or the pump input shaft there. So you're putting all of the abuse onto this bolt here, which is basically a sacrificial bolt. So, you know, it'll wear out. You can just go buy a new bolt. So pretty simple. So I'm gonna go grab some string and get that checked out real quick. Okay, so I couldn't find any string. I thought I had some, but I don't have any here. I went ahead and took the tool off, and I am actually flush with the end of the pump input shaft here. So just eyeballing it, it looks really good, but when I get the belt, I've got to order a last couple bit of parts here and bolt that down apparently. So I'm gonna get the belt, and I'll put the belt on there, and you'll be able to really tell once you put the belt on there where everything's lining up. So I think if anything, it's a little too far on the shaft, so I may have to pull it back, but we'll see when we get to the belt. Just want to make sure everything lines up so we don't wear out belts too quickly. So that's on. So I am going to clean up here a little bit and keep moving. Okay, I'm getting ready to put the adapter plates on for good here. And one thing that I wanted to note is I'm using the Dirty Dingo torque specs. They call out 28 foot-pounds for the flatheads and then 28 foot-pounds for the actual mount to the adapter plate. On these here, and this is just from years of doing this and just listening to the guys in the field here. I build industrial equipment, so just listen to the guys. You have dissimilar metals here. You have an aluminum plate and a zinc-plated iron or steel bolt. And what's going to happen is you're going to have galvanic corrosion between the two. The dissimilar metals, they don't like each other, and they are effectively going to lock themselves together eventually. It's like the same thing when you're putting stainless steel hardware in aluminum. They just don't do well. So the way I get around that is I put just a tiny little coating of anti-seize on the back of this flathead on the beveled edge here, so that between the two, where they're contacting, I mean, this is 100% contact in this cone here. So what that does is it prevents them from corroding together. Well, it slows them down. It doesn't prevent it, but it slows it down so that when I want to take this off someday, I will actually be able to get it off and not have to worry about stripping this out and then have to drill all this out. And it's a nightmare. So literally 2 minutes worth of putting all I use is just high temp copper anti-seize. I just buy big jugs of it and just keep it around, put it on there. So, but anyway, yeah, so I just put a little Loctite on those things with a little bit of anti-seize on the backside of that head, and that's all it takes to keep these things serviceable. So I got the motor down off the engine stand. Everything is buttoned up as far as I can go on it. So I guess at this point, what I'm going to do is change out or put the rear cover in and do the barbell. So I've got the new barbell here. I got just a plastic one, the stock one. It's a melling part. It's actually that's the part number right there. So real expensive, inexpensive. I think it was like $5. So anyway, the only way I could think of to get this out, and I didn't really do any digging, was to put a screw in it. So I just took a regular little drywall screw, ran it in there real quick, and then just pull it out. I think there we go. That's it. That sucker is pretty hard plastic. That O-ring is flat. There's not much going on there. That's good. So this motor was actually a hot tank, so he told me I needed to replace this, so I was having a hard time focusing there. But anyway, so that's out. You can see the back of my my cam here. Let's see if I can get that there we go. That's what I'm running in the motor right now. So I'm going to go ahead and put this plug in, put the cover on. So I've actually got to pick it back up, and I'm going to take the pan off. I think I only have 4 bolts in it, so I'm going to pick that up real quick. Use that same Sac City Corvette tool, the one for the rear, on the back here, and put all this together and button it up. And then the next step is messing with the transmission, getting it over here and kind of see what we need to do as far as trimming and whatnot. Okay, the motor's all buttoned up. The rear end is done. The barbell's in, the rear cover's on. It's got a gasket on it. It's got the rear main seals in it. And the flex plate is on. That flex plate, I torqued it to spec. It has 3 different passes. First pass is 15, second pass is 37, and third pass is 74. So that is all torqued down. Went ahead and marked all that. I even put some notes back here, so whoever takes this apart, if it's not me, will see when it was done and what's done inside of it, as well as who built it. So at this point, the motor is done. I mean, I have to order a new coolant temp sensor up there. That one's got the ears busted off of it, so I can't plug a connector on. So, and then I got to torque this down once this lifting plate is off of here because I can't get my socket on there. And then just order some general stuff. I got gaskets for the coolant, the steam pipes, steam vents that is. Just some little stuff like that. So at this point, it is time to take this and attach it to that. Also got this nice little Circle D converter over here. So we're going to put all these together. I thought I had a little bit of a problem. I was looking around. I couldn't find the bolts. I had bolts for this transmission to bolt to the motor, and I couldn't find them, and I finally did end up finding them. I like using the GM bolts, even though I could have gone and bought bolts. I like how they have this, they're all piloted. It just makes it easier. So I have actually 7 of those, and I only need 6. So I don't know how I ended up with 7, but who knows. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and call it a day just because I got to get home. So I got quite a bit done today. So next time I'm going to be putting all this stuff together, putting the converter inside the trans and getting it set and bolting everything up to the motor. That's really it this time. I'm trying to think of anything else that I did off camera. Not really, just kind of, I cleaned up the old spark plugs and put them in there just to plug the holes. So I'm going to order a new set. Valve covers, I'm going to do those in crinkle black. I just need to take them home and paint them because you got to cook them, heat them up when the paint's curing. So I usually just put them in the grill and let them cook in there. But anyway, that's it for today. I do appreciate everybody watching. Like always, my panhandling ways. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to. Share away if you'd like to as well. I know that there's some people out there that are really interested in this stuff. I've gotten some emails from everybody. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.